Hello, everybody, and today we are having the charming Mr. David Johnson from Adelaide, which has given us all sorts of problems today, but we're here now together in the same frame.
Here we are. Thanks for having me on, Nancy G.
Well, I'm glad you could make it, and we're going to do the psychic profiles questions.
Sure.
And the first question is, when did you first realize that you might have psychic abilities?
Well, I didn't know what was going on when I was young, but interesting things happened. And it's not really as dramatic as some people, but just there was a big contrast between the suburban Southern California experience that I had, which was, as normal Brady Bunch as you could possibly imagine. And my parents were not religious in any way. So they were 100% agnostics. They were very ethical and good people, but they did not ever take me to a church, not one time, right? So it was just kind of odd things would come up that I would mention to my parents, and they would just kind of go, reincarnation, where'd you get that? I once asked them who I would be if they hadn't met, and they said, well, you wouldn't exist. And I go, yeah, I'd be an Indian boy, and I'm blonde. And they was like, what? Where'd that come from? So these things happen. I had an aunt that was psychically gifted. And I was really interested in the couple of stories that she told me. And, a few other things happened that intrigued me until I would say the thing that sort of stopped me in my tracks was I encountered a poltergeist. And I went to a friend's house, and
that will grab your attention.
It definitely grabbed my attention. I went to this friend's house, and she was babysitting at someone's house, and she asked me to come there. And I thought, oh, how silly she's being. But when I got there, it was very clear things were moving around. And I was kind of definitely going down the rational lane. That was my experience. And sure enough, I couldn't explain it. I could not explain how the boot flew through the room and hit the wall. I just couldn't get it, And I was like, yeah, I couldn't get it. And, later on when I thought more about it and researched a little bit, people said, oh, the telltale signs of a poltergeist were there, teenagers that were, going.
Oh, and they used to always blame our hormones. It was always your
Yes. Teenagers were there with a lot of things going on in their lives. That was true. But I just remember walking home going, I can't find a rational explanation for what just happened. And I remember thinking there's something more to this. And I didn't, until really college, I didn't have things just line up so much. A really significant thing, and this is probably what really changed my mind. And there would be a lot of coincidences. And my best friend used to say to me, Dave, come on. I mean, you're like a walking coincidence. It's like, it's like everything just seems to, like if the universe is trying to tell you something, it loads it on. So I one time was in a class, and I minored in philosophy, and I specialized sort of in mystical stuff like, Buddhism and things like this. And in the class, there was someone who was writing a book on channeling. This was the best philosophy class I had with a marvelous teacher named Dr. Tendieka. And she said, hey, the last day, you want to come and check it out? And I'm like, really? Check out the channeling? Sure. And I didn't know what channeling was. I was, 22, very sort of middle of my understandings of things. Life was pretty difficult. 5 hours. I mean, my jaw was dropped the whole time. I could not believe the information that was coming through, how much this spirit knew about my life. It knew about the poltergeist. It knew what that was about. It knew jokes that I would make, everything. And, the people did not ask for any money. They were extremely generous with their cigarettes and coffee. I smoked. And so I just walked out of there thinking, Michael, what just happened? And I went there with skeptics, another student, and the assistant wrestling coach. So we weren't like these, woo-woo people at all. And we all were just like, whoa, what just happened? And I get home, and it's 5 o'clock in the morning, sun's just coming up, and I'm kind of in the space of wow. And I go to my sink and I open the door under the sink to put something in the trash. And a Seth book falls out and lands right in front of me.
Wow.
My roommate worked at a bookstore, and they used to rip the covers off, so that you could sell them. And I'm like, literally fell out of the trash in my face. And I was like, okay, this is one of those coincidences my best friend is talking about. I still had no idea I would be a channeler, but I knew there's something to this.
Yes. Yes. One of the people who talked to me when I was a child, I grew up in a very religious family in that they were Presbyterians. I don't think they're very religious, but anyway, we won't go there. But it was a nun who took me aside and said, she told me about an experience that had happened in her life. And she said, "You're like me."
Wow.
She said, "Don't walk away from it." So I'm like,
wow.
All right. So it's not always the religious people that get us, but but anyway, okay. You were telling us, I think having a Seth book fall down on your foot would be an aha moment. Did you have another aha moment when you went, I can really do this?
Well, I came to this world kicking and screaming. I did not think that I could do it. I did not want to do it. I didn't want to be a psychic. I had had a couple of psychic dreams that came true, but the problem was, and I knew they would, maybe around 18, 19, I knew that something was going to happen, but it didn't come out about the way that I thought it would. So I thought, well, what good is this? I'm going to go warn people, hey, don't drive a car because you'll get in an accident and it'll be the wrong people and it won't make any difference. It'll create more confusion, and who am I to say this?
Right.
So I still did not believe it. And I did not believe it until the day I made my first YouTube video. A lot of people had really tried to convince me to do psychic work, but I was like, well, no. And in the few months before my first Moonride video, I kind of worked myself up into, we'll just give it a try. If you're wrong, you've been embarrassed before, no big deal. So I really had to go kicking and screaming. I did discover shamanism right around 30. I was in the Peace Corps and I met a shaman, and that was a big moment because it was in Hungary. And I was learning Hungarian. I'd been there a few months, and it's a very, very difficult language. And it's very difficult to live in a place where you can't communicate. It's just psychologically difficult. So I sat down with this shaman, and I swear to God, he was talking right to me. And he would just look at me, and I'd be like, I keep understanding him. And it was like your nun. He looked at me and he goes, I know who you are, and I know why you're here, and I know what you're going to do. And I'd just be like, Dave, don't be so pretentious. This is ridiculous. Of course it's not. But it kept happening. And in that moment, when he started to speak Hungarian, I started to understand the language, like immediately. I wasn't good or anything, but I'm like, okay, just stop translating. Just get it. Just let yourself
Just let it flow through you. The language is language.
Yeah. And then I could start to understand. Every time I saw that shaman, he would have you choose a place in the circle. You didn't know where he was sitting. I would either sit to his left or directly facing him every single time we found this space. And I found even that people within that group, you're the foreigner, so maybe you have some interest. They would come and talk to me, and they would ask me questions, and they would say, what's this mean? What's this about? And I was like, why are you asking me? I'm not the shaman. But then I would go and do some journey, and I would have answers to their questions. So I still wasn't believing I was a psychic, but I knew there was something to this work. And I really wanted it as a job, as you know, it was very hard before YouTube to get paid to do the spiritual work because people had to know about you. And so shamanism didn't net me any money. It was $100 here or there. But I really found the practice for myself to be incredibly liberating and helpful. Shamanism doesn't help you avoid problems, but once you get to the problems, you have a better understanding of how to live with it.
Yeah, and you've got to a point that's interesting for me, because I think a lot of times people use different words like psychics or readers or medium, and then well, what's a shaman and what's a this and what's a that. Now, some have a little more training or whatever around them, but I think we all express being part of the same energetic flow.
Right. Right.
And I think, and some people get, I used, unfortunately, dear, I did make money doing this. I used to read at psychic fairs, which is an all out hoot of a thing to do.
Yeah.
Face to face with people all day long, you know. But the thing I found is there were people who were like, oh, well, you're just a card flipper. This person over here is, and I'm like, you know what? I can do what they do. I just like to have the cards there to show you what I'm seeing, you know. And yeah, well, I took a mediumship class from Kim Carey, and I told her, I said, do you want me? Is it okay if I come to your class? And she said, oh, I'd love to have you there. And she has big classes, so these women are all kind of going, why is she here? And Kim said, explain it. And I told him, I use cards, crystals, my grids, whatever I have. I have a substance between me and the person and the energy. And it's a different kind of feel. And a lot of people don't understand that, but we all have our own way to get from here to there. And that's what's important.
Yeah. And this is Kim from Intuitive View, right?
Right.
I'm going to give a big shout out to Kim because I'm extremely
she's a dog.
Yeah.
How do people around you react when you've shared your experiences? Or I know the hardest thing for me is people that are close to me having to, you know, my poor children having to tell horrified people that my mother's a psychic. You know?
Well, it does make things really interesting when you get on an airplane and you turn to the person and say, oh, I'm a channeler. And they go, what's that? And you explain it to them and you see them go, oh my God, 5 more hours with a lunatic. Yeah, it does make it interesting. I think it was kind of obvious going along through my life that I had something going on. I was certainly interested in mystical stuff, and I talked about mystical stuff. So I kind of eliminated a lot of people who would find that weird. I also lived in San Francisco, so it was a little bit more par for the course. Well, I would say after spiritual revelations, and I've had some very profound, life-changing revelations, some of those relationships have changed. There is sometimes, you know, when it's just kind of something Dave does, I think there's some people are like, well, we just don't talk about that. I'm not interested. When I'm there in your face talking about this fantastic revelation that I had reading Dolores Cannon, it's a little bit harder to brush aside. So I think a lot of people were just not entirely comfortable with that. And it's not like they stopped being my friend or anything, but they made it clear, let's just change the subject. So, people do react in an odd way. I think part of it is they're afraid. You know, if you're psychic, maybe you can see through them and you know what they're thinking.
That's the thing. You always think they're like saying, did I put on my clean underwear?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And
I'm not Superman. I don't have X-ray vision.
Yes. It's not like that.
Did you seek training or explore? Did someone find you, or you were on your own?
So a couple of things happened. I really did seek mysticism in college. That was like my minor. So there was that, and I sort of put myself around people that would be interested in that. When I went to Hungary, I sought him out. It was I was extremely lucky, and then I arrived. I met some key people that did some key things, and it was, again, those coincidences lining up perfectly. I was sort of taken to the shaman by some key people. And once there, leaving the Peace Corps, I'm like, okay, now what the heck do I do? It's the last week of Peace Corps. I'm like, am I going to be a therapist? What am I going to do when I get home? You know, I want to drop that as a meeting. I did these tarot card readings because I do them for myself. I did these tarot card readings. Psychologist, nope. Banker, nope. I don't know what else I had, but nope. And I never do 9 tarot card readings on the same subject, but I was in frustration. I'm like, fine, should I just become a shaman? Yes. Bing, 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 bing. Everything was a yeah. So I'm like, well, what does that mean? I have to go live in Mongolia? You know, what does that mean? And I kind of got the indication, just go home and do your best. But when I got to San Francisco, the .com was booming and I was just broke. I didn't have any technical skills at all. I was just
Mhm.
this English teacher without a degree in English teaching. It was really a difficult time. So I kept seeking out these shamans, but I didn't have a nickel to pay them. I found a couple of people who took money by donation, and I always do that myself because I don't want to exclude anyone. And so, yeah, there were a few people that helped me in the shamanic world. And I did a vision quest on Mount Shasta with an awesome lady there. So there was some, but I remember reading Michael Harner's book, and Michael Harner's written a great book about shamanism, just very
Mhm.
practical, how to do it. Very slim book. I highly recommend it. He does not go into the history or anything else. It's just like, do this, do this, do this, do this. One of the things he said is people who do this on their own, learn on their own, it will be harder, but they will learn more because they will
Mhm.
develop their own sort of shamanic connection. And that's almost exclusively what I did. I probably met 10, 15 times with other shamans and did this work out of 25 years.
Mhm.
So it wasn't for lack of trying, I did. But what would happen is, something would come up and I wouldn't be able to continue meeting with them. I
Mhm.
did make a lot of friends in the shamanic world. And one of them, it really pushed me and said, Dave, you're a psychic. Dave, you're a psychic. I'm like, no, 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 no. And her name is Ronnie Naik, and she is also a great psychic.
Mhm.
Um, and it's Naik. If you ever get the chance, she really is largely responsible for this. The other person, of course, I got to give a lot of credit to is Lena Rodriguez, because I
Mhm.
was a random person and I had an opportunity to talk to her. And when I did, I said, "Would you ever let me read for you?" And she doesn't necessarily do this for everybody, but for me, she caught something and put me on her show, and the rest
Mhm.
is my show. I mean, it is
Yeah, I
largely,
know. That's how they grow.
yep.
Are there any specific tools that you've made part of your practice? Are there any like personal rituals or things that are part of your practice?
And absolutely. And to anybody doing this work, I would recommend you do them. It doesn't have to be what somebody else says, but
Mhm.
anything that, we all get distracted. There's so much going on right now. Keeping yourself centered is key to any work that you do, however you do it. And one practice that I do is go to nature. I try as often as possible, maybe once a year, to literally go away to nature for a week
Mhm.
and give up coffee and sugar and just meditate and hike and clear my mind. And on that, and during that time, I will do shamanic journey, and I will, whatever flavor is coming up right now, I will work with that every day these days. And that is Monday through Sunday. I meditate, and
Mhm.
I will do that for a minimum of 10 minutes. A maximum can be even more than an hour. And
Mhm.
meditation, as part of the meditation, of course, you're battling, saying, no, don't think about that. Don't think about that. Don't get
Mhm.
distracted. Don't get distracted. Part of that will end with take all of these distractions and put them into the earth so that you are rooted to the
Mhm.
earth. And then I will draw in a pyramid where I will I'll put in my ancestors who guide me and guides who guide me. And I'll lower that pyramid around me. And in that process, I pray for my child self. I always try to go to the child self and support that
Mhm.
child. And my partner, I always see him and send love.
Mhm.
And then I see kind of a gigantic farm with everybody farming on it, working together organically. And it's sort of my
Right.
prayer for the earth and humans to find greater peace and something like that.
Did you have any mentors or teachers? I know I heard one point where you were studying or using the theories from Dolores Cannon. Did you have
Yeah,
any?
yeah. And I was trained, but only by video. If I
Oh,
had known,
okay.
if I
You
had
had
known,
no
yeah,
connection.
I wish I had met her. If I'd known about her in 1999, I would have done that. But I did not know her. Certainly, Lena Rodriguez has been a fine mentor.
Mhm.
There's a lot of stuff that just comes up. what you should do about trolls. That she was great in terms of beginning the process, and she was very helpful. I had other shaman that were very good mentors. I'm forgetting the lady in Mount Shasta. Her name slipped my mind, but I worked a bit with Daniel Foor, who did ancestor training in in shamanism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sure there are others I'm afraid I've left out. Oh, I had that great teacher, Dr. Tandieka, a lady named Crystal Bennett. Once I was at one of those 1 week retreats in a place called Point Reyes, and I was hitchhiking home because I didn't have any money. And she's the car that picked me up. And when she picked me up, I said, that's really interesting. I've been looking for someone to teach me. I've been looking for a guide. And she turned to me and she goes, yeah, I know.
I picked you up off the little light glowing around you.
Yeah.
Well, good. Okay. How did you learn to tell the difference between psychic impressions and your imagination?
Yeah, that is such a key question, isn't it? It's almost like, Nancy, that's what we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what we do. And I'll tell you that I'm not perfect yet. I'm still figuring that out. How much is my imagination? But one book that actually helped a lot, and I guess he would be another mentor, is Robert Johnson's book called Inner Work. And inner work is very much for a therapist, and it's creating a dialogue between yourself and some kind of guide, but it's using active imagination. So you're actually stating that this is imagination and not that it's anything more. But then the process of doing it, it started to become more like I would get this sort of mentorship, and then I would go out and the reality would match. For example, I was a recruiter for software engineers. It's like the last job in a million years I would think I would have. But I would get to know whether they would accept the job or not. I could tell. I could just tell. So I'm like, well, is this active imagination? Is this just my imagination that I'm thinking he won't take the job and he's going to stiff me and not show up? And then the next day that would happen. And I would explain this to my boss and say, look, he's not going to show up for the job. And he would say, what's wrong with you? Of course he is. I said, go ring the bell. You just made 10 grand. Come on. And I'm like, okay, ding. But I would just know. So one thing that's helpful, and I think we have to agree to be rational. Just the fact that we're intuitive doesn't mean we leave rationality aside. We do have to consider this, but most of the time what will happen is I just continue my own inquiry. Like how could this just be your imagination? We discovered that in the last election. I got the information that there was going to be trouble at that election. I received that and I said it in my video. I just came to the conclusion of that information that I wanted to, right? So Spirit was accurate. My interpretation was idealized. I said Trump will become King Kong, and that King Kong, and King Kong, Empire State Building is all finished. Well, I think all those things are happening. They just didn't happen in a month. They are going to take place a amount of time, right? So there's always an inquiry. I would not say that Spirit's not inaccurate. There are processes that everybody should go to when you're speaking to Spirit to make sure it's in the highest good, because there's plenty of energy out there that may not be the highest good. I always just ask them to show me something that will make me know that they are Spirit. And I've had them sometimes go, oh, here's a Coca-Cola and a McDonald's hamburger. And you're not Spirit.
No. Spirit will not hand you Coke.
Right, exactly.
Or a McDonald's hamburger for that matter.
Yeah, exactly. And when I see it, I can feel it in my heart. When I train to channeling, I always say, first of all, women are going to be better at this. You guys know your feelings better than men. But it's just like, you don't like that door, don't go through it. Just brush aside, another doorway will show up. That Spirit shows up, they're not showing you something, just say thank you and brush them aside. You'll know it's interesting because you don't want to just go with your ego and impressions and imagination, but you do want to lock into your feelings. you do have to see if it feels good. Just as
Right.
when you're going and you're meeting someone and they're going to potentially be your boss, part of it is just oh, I don't want to work with that guy. You know, it's just a feeling and you can trust it.
Very good. Okay, now we're to challenges and breakthroughs.
Wow. Okay.
Have there been moments when you really doubted yourself, and how did you push through that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, post-election, boy, did I doubt myself. And I doubted the value of what I was doing and what we're all doing. It's like, well, what good is predicting things if your predictions aren't accurate? You know, what good is it predicting things if you've given people false hope? It hit pretty hard. And I think it hit hard for a lot of us that we were apparently inaccurate. I would say we still don't know what really went on there. I don't think we will know for a few years. We might be more accurate than we thought. But certainly, and it was days of being really depressed and my partner trying to cheer me up and saying, this is not the end of the world. I was very doubtful of it. And it will come up, you know, there are some times where you're not necessarily able to help your clients as much as you would like. There will be times when you relay information that people don't necessarily want to hear. Mm-hmm. So it's always a challenge to overcome that. And one, I think we always have to admit that we're not perfect. I will just say I'm good if I'm 85% accurate. So, you know, if I'm wrong, you know, I will admit it. And if I'm wrong, then I will, you know, tell my clients, hey, I could be wrong. Take this with a grain of salt. This is just one avenue and you should try your others. It may be that things change. And so this is not predictable. My reading might change your mind about things. You might behave in a different way. Certainly that is ongoing, but I guess I have been accurate enough. Mm-hmm. And I will also, you know, start talking to people and I will say things and they'll just be like, wow, how'd you know that? Right. Or I will put forth sort of an image and a metaphor and they're like, that's exactly what I'm here to talk to you about. So I guess I'm accurate enough and I'm accurate enough in my own predictions of my own future that it's helpful. Shamanism is very helpful too, because I sometimes go there to corroborate what I'm learning in my kind of channeling work.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think after the election, I just looked at people and said, well, what did you think? Well, I was following what you were saying. And I said, that's why it didn't happen the way you wanted it to, because you didn't have that forefront in your mind. You were holding on to what I was saying because you were afraid of the other part.
Right. Right.
And I think a lot of readers had to learn about coping with people and their fears. And, you know,
a friend of mine said, look, think of those as prayers.
Yes,
you were
they are.
praying for a particular outcome, but there was a lesson in there too.
Did you?
Just because we want it to happen, that doesn't mean that it's in the highest good.
No. Did you get knocked on your butt that night? A lot of us literally got hit, like almost. I actually passed out, but before the election numbers were out. And I woke up the next morning and I knew what had happened. And I said, wow, what darkness had spread through here. And that's part of why we couldn't see it, because we were literally blindsided.
I think so too. I did not sleep a wink all night. I just remember just being absolutely worried, just very worried, like an uncontrollable. I cannot see how this is going to come out well. You know, we're empaths, and when you're an empath, it can be really hard to get past that. Yeah. It can be really hard to get past. I mean, you knew what was going to happen and how badly people would be affected by it. And I think there was a naivete in assuming that we have any, you know, media controls it. Media controls who the president is. They control who runs the Senate, right? And I think we're in denial if we still think it's a democracy. It's not.
Well,
whoever controls the media controls the presidency.
Yeah.
And I think I was in denial. I was just assuming we're still a democracy, and we're not. So I really was. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much of it was spirit and how much of it was just worry and upsetness.
Well, and I can tell you all right now. Right now, I'm talking a lot about glimmers, and glimmers are little sparks of hope that we see kind of over our shoulder. And it's a micro moment. And what you do is once you realize it's there, you hold on to it.
Yeah.
And they become signs of hopes, and eventually they will build together. And instead of being tied to all those little nagging fears that the media is trying to feed to us to keep us in line, we need to all be looking for glimmers now.
Great point. And there are glimmers.
And there's glimmers all over the place. How do you handle skepticism when somebody just openly comes up and says, I'm a skeptic and blah, blah, blah. And you can't.
I love skeptics. I say I love them. I love skeptics. It's great. It's great. I'm happy you're skeptic. And I will always tell them I'm not devoid of rationality. I can be a very analytical person. My first A+ was actually in logic, right? Socrates logic, that mathematical use of linguistics. That was my A+ in college, my first. So it was very, and I will kind of just arm them in this way, in a sense of saying, well, you don't have to believe in it. I don't care. You don't. I don't think that anybody doesn't get into heaven, call it heaven, the next level, whatever it is. I think we're all invited, and skepticals are just as welcome as anyone else. If you want to be a skeptic, be a skeptic. I find that it is totally reasonable for somebody not to believe in any of this stuff and still go to it as psychology or a personal relationship with self. You can go do shamanic journeys and you can just say, well, maybe it's your unconscious figuring something out, and this is just a new way to tap into the whole self. You don't have to believe in anything. Or people who are, skeptical of past life regression. I'm always like, well, you should be. We should all be skeptical in the spiritual world as well and test ourselves. But I find that the past life regressions are helpful. People will get off the bed and say, I'm no longer afraid of heights, and I don't need as much medicine as I was taking anymore.
Right.
And my life has changed. So who cares whether you believe in something or not? If it is helpful to you, maybe it's just your unconscious creating this fabulous, perfectly constructed story that relieves you of the stress. If that works, fine, right? So I find that sometimes the skeptics are the best people to work with because they're surprised. They're just like, oh, I'm expecting some, hippy dippy character with lots of moonbeams and, rainbows around them or something. And then they're speaking to someone who's, totally open to skepticism and does not, they want to think that this is a religion. And and you have to be a member or we can't be friends. I'm happy to be friends with skeptics.
Well, and a religion is something that's based on a bunch of rules. And as far as I can tell, if they look in this community, we don't qualify.
Don't qualify. There are a few rules that we are following.
Have your abilities gone through weak and strong stages so that you could kind of identify this sort of weakened me and this made me stronger?
Well, certainly I've had bad days where I just, haven't slept very well, and I get up and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna really meditate this morning, right? And so certainly there is that. I haven't felt so far off, but I have felt really on. So I went. These were two events. I read Dolores Cannon's "They Walked with Jesus." And I had a revelation. I was not raised with any kind of, I was neither pro or anti-Jesus. Of course, I had my very strong opinions about religion growing up as a gay man, but, Jesus seemed to be a good character, but, okay. And I don't want to put Jesus beyond anybody, medicine corn woman, Buddha, all of that stuff. They all have wonderful things to offer. But reading this book and seeing what I consider to be a real account of Jesus is nothing like the one that we have been taught in these churches. He is completely pro-woman. There is no judgment. Everybody gets to heaven. And I really had a sort of a revelation, massive download of information. And I was crying for an hour when my partner heard me and had to like pick me up off the floor and carry me into the room because I was kind of in the middle of it. And for 3 days, I kind of floated around the apartment. I can floated around and no one could make me angry. Someone could have punched me in the face. I would have asked them how they were feeling today. Yeah. And I was just floating, driving my partner crazy. She's like, Dave, you've left the oven on again and you've turned on the heat again and the front door's open. This is the 4th time. And so there were, I felt really like anything could have happened and I would have responded appropriately. That lasted maybe 3 days. And I had a similar experience when I went to Uluru, which is the sacred mountain for Aboriginal people in Australia. I came back and that was really part of just again, another massive download. And I could only explain it by saying I got a lot less judgy. You know, I was able to see people and say, you are no different from them, right? Yeah. This lifetime or some lifetime, you've had the same things going on for you yourself. Dave Johnson, you're not perfect. You've done wrong things. Stop judging others. And you had all these advantages another might not have had. You can't judge somebody's life experience. You can look at someone and say, I don't really like what they are doing, but that doesn't make me better. And both of those religious experiences were, you know, I could be really righteous. I completely dropped the righteousness. And I come a bit more to, it's meant to be. This is the way things are supposed to be. It's hard for us to grasp and accept that we might be in these difficult situations. But we did choose this to some degree. We chose to be here at this time, and we can do the right things and confront this. That is also part of our meaning and project here on Earth, is to, who are we without shadows? You know, we can't bring in the light if there's no reason to bring in the light. So there is a purpose.
Yeah, I've always felt like, how can you define light if you don't know what dark is?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it doesn't mean you have to bring it home and raise it, but
no. Yeah,
how do you protect your own energy?
The process I was speaking of, where I put the energy into the earth when I'm meditating. I often do that before a session too. If there's been some time between my meditation and an actual session, I will put my energy into the earth. Anything distracting, like a lightning bolt through my feet, I'll put into the earth. And then I will draw the pyramid. And the pyramid is full of love. It is full of family members who have passed, who love me, my guides, and I lower that around me. And when I do, I feel very protected. So I do this. I will also, I've also, really have to make myself, because I will forget to do this after a session, after a past life regression, make myself do a little bit of release. This is not my material. This is not my material. This is not my material. And I have this wonderful singing bowl. So sometimes I'll just do this. And let it clear. So it doesn't need to take long. I really should be very consistent about this, and I'm okay consistent about this. Right. But any kind of moment where you're like, look, that's their stuff. You're helping them with that, but let it go. And for example, one thing about past life regression was I won't remember it. People talk to me 2 days later. I'm like, I have no memory of what we talked about.
I know a lot of readers that'll tell people, if you want to know anything about this reading, you got to get a hold of me in the next 48 hours because then it's gone.
Yeah.
Because it's not mine to carry,
Yeah. Yeah. It would be too fast if we carried it.
I had a woman who was influential. She was a psychic I knew when I was quite young. And she said, if everybody took the cross they came in to carry in this life and put it in a room. And you always think, oh, I'd much rather live their life than mine. But if you put all those lives into a room and the form of a cross, she said, I can guarantee you 100% you're going to come out carrying your own cross, because that's the one you know. Do not, you will not, you may not even be able to lift the other person's cross, even though you think they have a perfectly wonderful, 100% better than where you are life.
Right.
Making those kind of comparisons don't work. And I've always had to remember that spiritually, that, you know, what gives them, how people express themselves and how we see them is, it's not against them or for them or anything else, but the only gift I can bring into the world is who I am, which is what you're saying. The only gift you can bring into the world is who David is.
Exactly.
Okay. 100%. All right. Do you think your psychic abilities are innate, or did you really think, if you had just chosen and not let the book of Seth fall on your foot and then paid no attention to it, do you think it would have grown anyway?
I think it would have. The lady, Crystal Bennett, who picked me up once, I was in a pretty difficult place. These helpers sort of show up at the most difficult moments of my life. Right? I was in a pretty difficult place. I was completely broke and barely able to feed myself. And she said, "Look, you can walk away from this life. Just go to a forest and say, I don't want to do that." Right? She goes, "But here's a hint: you won't be who you are if you do that." And I knew in that moment, like, it was so essential to who I am. It's the most interesting thing to me. I care more about this than virtually anything except people in my life. And so I don't think I think I would have 5 minutes afterwards, I would have had such a huge craving. I would have pleaded with the universe to take it back.
Please let me in.
Yeah. I think it was always part of my personality. And even from small childhood, I kind of knew that I was aware of things that others were not aware of. And sometimes teachers thought I was a dreamer, and I sort of was a dreamer, but I was also, because I was just fixing on things. I was aware of things that I was focusing on. And yeah, I don't think I could have let it go.
What do you say to someone who says, I might be gifted? What do you tell them?
I would say you are gifted. I would say everybody is gifted. It is a question of, maybe it is not necessarily their initial proclivity at 3 years old, but man, people change. I've had so many people who are atheists, contact me at 60 and say, something happened, everything's changed. I don't understand this. And tell me, I'll just give this sort of life advice. Everybody has these abilities. Every single person will be able to walk into a room and say, I'm not supposed to be here. This is a bad place, and leave. They will know this in 10 seconds. Or they will look at someone and go, that guy's going to be my best friend. I can tell right away. And they will just know. And people will always say, oh, no, you could tell for these other reasons. Sure. You could also tell right here in your solar plexus the truth was. And it's just a question of whether they want to focus on that in their lifetime. And they don't have to. Maybe they're more interested in banking. And by all means, they should do that if that's what their interest is.
Right.
But
we need some more good bankers. We need bankers with good souls.
And I know people who've worked a lot with very wealthy and powerful people. And they said, look, they will deny it, but they're totally intuitive. They don't hire somebody based on a resume. They hire somebody based on the gut feeling.
Oh, God, yes.
Do this. They use their intuition all the time. They would just call it something else. So it is 100% the case that people have these abilities, that they deny these abilities and call them something else. And, think of an artist, why did they sculpt that? Why did they paint that? Where did that inspiration come from? So we all have it. It's just a question of to the degree that you want to utilize it. And I would say at this time, I get a lot of messages from people, a lot of clients who are discovering this for the first time. Something did shift along with negative social political changes. Something shifted in response to those, because I am, especially people of a certain age, they're like, well, hey, I'm 75. I can't believe that this is happening now, but I'm just starting to get the feeling that I'm intuitive and I'm very interested in it, and I want to learn how to channel and stuff like that. Something very much shifted for the whole population in a very good way. A
Right.
lot more people are these points of light than I think would have been the case 20 years ago.
That's where I came up with the idea of psychic profiles. Is I read 3 people in a row who were in their 70s, and they all said, what do you do with this? How does this start? Where does it come from? And I said, I can ask some people.
Okay, good.
How has this work changed your worldwide view or your beliefs about life and death?
Wow, it sure has changed. I would say I would have been skeptical of aliens some time ago, but I have encountered and channeled some aliens, so I'm certainly open to that. I'm still honestly a little terrified of meeting them face to face. It almost happened once, and I was like, I changed my mind. I don't want to meet you guys. Just channeling will be fine. That certainly has changed. When you do past life regressions, and I've been the subject and also the director of them, it'll really change your impression of what life and death is. It really is, especially because you get to sort of interim place where the person does their sort of review and spirit asks them, how'd you do? They are really talking directly to spirit. And I see people who never channeled at all, and spirit, Jesus will show up, Mary will show up, Native American guide will show up, and they will be speaking that voice. And they don't even believe in any of this stuff, and then they wake up and they're just like, oh my God, who was that? What happened? So I think that we're both coming to this fairly skeptically, and the messages are really accurate and very loving. I would say that it rarely, just never do I encounter anything that straight up sort of puts anyone down, anyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's always about, okay, you don't agree with this person. What's the best way for you to convince them, or what's the best thing that you could say that they would think about that might change their mind? Don't attack or argue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't debate. That's not going to work. And I am much more likely now to give a personal experience to move them. Instead of being right, I will be like, look at another person. Mm-hmm. So that's certainly changed. And one thing that Jesus made clear to me when I saw him was no one is judged.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, no one is judged. You will judge yourself. You will understand what happened and took place, but maybe to some degree it was meant to be. There isn't a Jesus without a Judas.
That's right.
So when we think of good and bad, we might think, well, wow, Judas kind of had to do that. He couldn't make, there's no resurrection without him. So he kind of got the bad job, right?
Right.
He is with a lasting reputation. So he kind of walked into this role and did what he did. And I spoke to him, and what he said is, I was political. Jesus told me to be something more. I didn't listen. I didn't understand that. But the whole purpose of me selling him out for the cash was I thought he would get political. I thought he would just start fighting them and we would win our battle and we would come a country. But Jesus had a higher understanding of the universe, and he wanted me and others to get there. So I'm not here to judge Judas. I would say that he's, performed an important role, rather got a bad rap. And he was learning, just like we're all learning. He was mistaken, just like we're all mistaken. And it led to great consequences, and that is a terrible misfortune to carry. But on the other side, we know he had a role. He needed to be who he was.
Well, God puts us where he wants us to be. So he put Judas there. So that's kind of how it works. What's one of the most powerful readings you've ever done? Just disclose it in broad terms or however you want.
You mean for another person?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to say that perhaps past life regression work, that is the sort of Dolores Cannon work of doing the quantum healing type stuff, that can be and has virtually always been extraordinary because I'm not the one that's channeling. I lead this client who is, leading an ordinary life and doesn't necessarily believe in this stuff. And they are telling me these past lives. And they are telling me, oh yeah, here's my guide. And my guide is giving advice. And they will be speaking of themselves in the third person. So let's say that I'm Nancy Jean's the client. You'll be on there going, well, Nancy Jean, we keep telling her not to drink so much coffee in the morning, but she does anyway, so she knows this. And Nancy Jean, they will speak of themselves in the third person. It's incredibly convincing and incredibly powerful. And when people are watching that video, it's like, well, if I were giving them the predictions, they go, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Oh, all right, I think he's accurate. Let's go see. And then they might try that out. But if it's them,
if it's their own mouth, their own words,
they don't have a secret agenda. They really want a solution to these problems, and it will be so vivid. I mean, if you want to learn how to make a horseshoe in the 17th century, you put someone in this past, and they will give you the details of how to make lace, the details of the difference between good linen and medium linen. And these are people who don't know these things. I don't know this 80-year-old woman who lives in Nantucket. She doesn't know how to shoe a horse, right? She doesn't know how to bang metal into these things. So it's really, really persuasive. And I am also just sort of in amazement when that happens. It's like a famous person, perhaps, or even a regular person will give details that don't come through in history books. Like what it's really like to be a revolutionary in the 18th century France, what it's really like the personal interaction, not the facts. And so I think those are very powerful. I think I have given very powerful readings to people in very difficult circumstances. And there's a level of, psychic predictions, which have their value, and sort of a channeling whole life that has its value. Sometimes people really just need to know, should I sell my house or not? They need to know that so that they can move forward in their lives. And there's no reason to knock that aspect of predicting. They need that kind of help. They also benefit sometimes from a more whole life perspective of, you made that mistake. You were supposed to make that mistake so that you can, let's get over the guilt. I can think of many that are like me. They had reached the point of where they were totally lost. Nothing seemed within their control. And that is the best place to have these real personal changes, these real evolutions. I would say also it's really fun when I talk to people and they pursue their own spiritual gifts, right? And they will send me a message 6 months later, like, wow, it really worked. I became a quantum healer. I love it. It's really changed my life. Or I went ahead and did some Reiki, and now I work with these great people, and it's very satisfying.
Very good. Okay. And then what advice would you give them, someone who's trying to explore their gifts if they're just starting out?
I would say, don't hesitate to try every school that interests you, right? And just go and just check it out. So you can go and, work with crystals, and maybe that's just, it's interesting, but you're just okay at it, or it doesn't have a huge interest. No problem, right? Go, well, I'm going to try this. I'll try this. I'll try this. You don't need to spend a lot of money. If you don't have it, by all means, just, go meet with a group of people and see what they are doing. And it is totally okay just to say, wonderful, but this group's not for me. Now is not the time to go follow a guru, right? There may be a teacher, but not a guru. And it's totally okay to say, well, what they're doing is fine, but it's not for me. And I would say, even if you're beginning, if you're feeling uncomfortable with a group of people for any reason, it is perfectly okay to say, I really appreciate what you're doing, but this is not for me and I need to leave, right? That you should have the awareness, the self. I kind of want to say management, but I just want to say the selfness to go and say, I am me. I know what I know, and I know that this isn't working for me. I also know that if there's something that this is causing some trigger in me, I'm going to go home and I'm going to think about it and see how much of it was just me learning and how much of it is me, feeling, etc., and reflect on that. Try these schools, read books, go to Amazon and type in a title and see what other titles show up that goes, oh, I want to read that, right? And you'll find that just the universe will lead you to your books. You and I could come at this from a totally different perspective and wind up at the same place. Your experiences were not necessarily founded in shamanism. That's perfectly good. And there's no, it would be a strange world if we were all good at the same thing. It wouldn't be helpful.
It'd be boring.
It'd be boring.
I mean, and then there'd always be the asshole who did the other thing. And we'd go, how come they got to do that and I didn't? Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any daily habits you recommend to people? I know you talk about meditating, bringing in, but I mean, I actually had someone who told me I'd rather cut off my head than meditate. And I said, then fine. Obviously, that's not for you right now.
Right. That's not for you. I would say, keep in mind there are other forms of meditation. Just listening to music is a sort of meditation. Keep in mind, you can go, some people meditate by going for a walk or by being with animals. So it doesn't have to be straight up, sitting on the seat and, trying not to think. It doesn't have to be like that. That's one thing that I would do. I would say, frankly, one of the important things that I learned was don't be too tough on yourself. Now, I've made horrible mistakes in my life, and I've spent decades just fretting over, oh, what a stupid mistake I made. How could I have been so dumb? I ruined my life, lives of others. How could I be so foolish? I've done over and over and over again that. But, we've had these experiences to teach us something.
That's right.
You didn't do it wrong by screwing up like that. You were 6, you didn't know, or you were 16, or you were 60, you didn't know, and now you know. So I would say dwell on any mistake you ever made, unless it is to see the value of the learning in that mistake. And when you accept to some degree, I learned something, and I was placed here to learn something, and if I didn't learn that, I wouldn't have a purpose on this planet. Make that a practice. Go to any events where you feel responsible for being foolish or you did something unethical or whatever it is, and go to those experiences and see if you can't, talk to yourself enough to accept that that was a learning experience and nothing more. And while you might take the lessons away from that, you don't need to carry any guilt or burden in regard to that.
Right.
And don't compare yourself to others. We live in a horribly materialistic society. And I don't care how rich you are, there's always going to be somebody richer than you. We're always in the cycle of going, well, my life's terrible because I don't have this and I don't have that. I must be a failure because that's what society tells me. One advantage to Australia is they're not like that. If you are a road worker, first of all, you're probably paid reasonably well. People treat you with respect. They don't look down on you. And you like to go fishing on the weekends with your friends, and that's the meaning of your life. Americans are absolutely obsessed with material things and status. And as long as we're stuck in that place, we have to have material things, and they're nice, and we like to accomplish. But it really is the accomplishment that you will be looking at when you're at your life review. You won't be looking at the fact that you built that business. You'll be looking at the fact that you became a person who could do that, or a person who's a really good friend, or a person who has learned how to love better, or a person who worked on envy, or all of these things. The material stuff is... It can be an inspiration, but it can also be an end. Don't compare yourself to others. You are you. You are an essential portion of the universe. The universe cannot exist without your energy and learning. And that's true for every single person, whoever you might think about. They are a portion of the universe, and they will learn as a poor person, or maybe as a rich person, or as a middle-class person.
Well, you took the next question, which was, how do you find a trustworthy psychic? I think you use your instincts, just like you were talking about.
Yeah.
Testing out the water. Do they strike me as true? And that kind. So we're down to the last question. You've been a
Okay.
marvelous person to interview. What's the biggest lesson you've learned in your whole psychic journey? Now that's just a little question, right?
Okay. And I have learned in my whole psychic journey. I'm going to say you're always moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to be complete. Your predictions
Mm-hmm.
are never going to be perfect. There's always more to learn, and
Mm-hmm.
there's always greater self-awareness. And it's not going to be like, okay, now I'm finished. At any point in your life, oh, I've learned it all. It's never going to happen. You're always going to be working within the self, working and understanding yourself, asking, is this my ego or is this a real prediction? You're always going to be doing that. So I would say that is the key, except that it is always a process. We don't know the answers, all of them, as we sit here today. We're always asking the questions and moving towards those answers, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think everybody knows to make the best choice they can each day. And to the over 80 people who have come into the chat, thank you for coming and seeing David and I. That was a very good choice. And now I am going to let David begin his day in Australia, and I'm going to end my day in Dallas. So
All right.
you guys have a wonderful time. Thank you for your questions. You got great rave reviews. People are so happy to see you, David. And thank you for sharing. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone.